Sure.
What if we had no weighting? That's my question. What if it was a total square footage calculation where everyone pays the same price per square foot citywide? I want to see those numbers because I believe those to be the most equitable. And then we would look at something in between possibly if it doesn't play out. But that's based on what I'm hearing from my council members. I get that I think we can almost use the word industry standard here, but
I'm sorry.
that's only because of legal risk. It's not because there's an industry standard beyond these 30 entities that made this up and all had the same consultant. So I'm being really direct because that's what I'm hearing. And I think these are the things we have to figure out how to talk about and tell a story around. And I'll stop and just see if I forget anything before with my colleagues, because it'd be nice maybe to get all the items out first.
Yeah, over the last few years, there have been a lot of consultants. Yes, I have been in the game for 30 years, but Renton and Kent, they took this thing and ran with it. The people that I learned this from, this is what they were using, and other folks that are using it now are using the same thing. The reason we have the weighting factors, Jim, is because the initial premise is that, as an example, if 80% of your square footage comes from residential, then 80% of your revenue should be made up by residential. So that's basically the reason for the weights. And then we start there, and then you can put a little more burden on commercial if you want, or lighten residential if you feel the need, or make smaller structures, smaller properties pay less.
Okay. And I'll stop talking with just one pushback is that in your example, that only works if 80% of the cost of fighting fire comes from residential. Because I think that's the other thing we're dealing with is that it costs a lot more to fight a commercial structure fire, and the weight is being carried by our residents.
Right. So what we start doing then is that pushing that residential over to commercial, and we do have a few scenarios that start to do that. You could carry that to an extreme, but you have to be careful. It's like, I can't remember if John said it, I wouldn't want to go to that Chamber of Commerce meeting to tell them what the commercial rates are going to be. But whenever you give one area a break, it has to be paid for by another.
I think that also we were talking about, if there was no weighting, if the having